And we're good to go, Lisa.
Okay, everybody. I started today with, whoops, there goes my lighting. Hang on, there. With the most famous painting that I feel, frankly, that everybody kind of knows at this point, Girl with a Pearl Earring. And I didn't want to plunk it in halfway through because this is what everybody's usually always looking to see. And I can talk to you a little bit about it. Excuse me. It's a tiny painting. It's only 17 inches by 15 inches. And the thing that you have to know about Vermeer is that he only painted 34 paintings in his life, and they were all quite small. So we'll talk about that later. This was painted in 1665, and it's now over $40 million worth. So that's pretty incredible. And it's a pretty incredible painting. And I think, feel free to add anything, but I mean, for those of you who saw the movie, they did a great job, but that is a very, very haunting painting. The pearl, obviously you can see it, you know, the look in her eyes. And again, it's that classic, either dark brown, not really black, it's close to black background. And in that, you can, you know, the girl with the pearl earrings face, the lighting is extraordinary and it's very, very enhanced, okay? She's very beautiful looking. And, you know, everybody loves this. Can we look at the detail of it, Jason, please? There she is. I mean, that's incredible. What do you all think her face is saying? Anybody have any thoughts?
She looks so innocent.
Yes, yes, she does. She really does. And she looks like she was caught off guard. And yes, there's an innocence. Now, I don't know if you can see on your computer screen. Do you see the many, many cracks in the skin tone?
Yes.
Okay. Vermeer only painted in oil, and he would either glaze or varnish his paintings to protect them. But at the same time, we have since found out that in art studies, varnish can be pretty not so great for canvases, hence the cracking, okay? I mean, I feel it's got a beautiful quality to it, but you know, that's what it's about. Now, I'm just gonna take a little break here. Actually, if we can go back to the first one, Jason. There we go. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about Dutch light for a little bit because it's actually considered a very, very important source of inspiration for those from the Netherlands. Now, I don't know if you have ever been to Holland or the Netherlands, but it's true. The lighting is phenomenal. Okay. Now, here's the thing. People often wonder if this Dutch light actually still exists. Some people say it does. Other people say that it sort of dissipated with the industrial revolution on through the 1950s, you know, with factories and building. The lighting is not quite as intense, but lighting in Vermeer's paintings, it's a major, major focal point. I mean, it was very, very important to him. So it was famed for its brilliant and unique intensity, as you can see here in his first painting. This was called the golden age of Dutch paintings, not necessarily just reflected in portraiture, but great, great landscapes, okay? Because if you remember, the Netherlands are below sea level. So basically, you're talking about being below sea level, vast skyscapes like you can't believe, and water. And if you go up north into the Netherlands, it's even more so. Have any of you been to them? Netherlands? Yes. It's pretty amazing. So you're sort of blown away by the light. So anyway, It's a vista of the country's landscape, and there's very often painted up very dramatic clouds, so much so that it almost seems, critics have said, hyper realistic, like beyond realism. So I want you to keep this in mind as we go throughout this. It almost looks like a lot of Dutch paintings almost evoke a fantasy-like feeling. So they call it the real Holland, the land of water and sky, and the pearl gray realm. Now, all right, you see her pearl earring there, but you'll see this pearly quality. Even you can see it, I mean, in her eyes, the whites of her eyes. And they feel, many critics feel, or meteorologists or whatever, you know, the mists that rise from the water shrouds the world with a translucent and veil. And it gives the country in general an extraordinary sense of lighting and picturesque. Everything seems to be bathed in light and air. So I can even see it here, you know, it's just not, you know, a portrait. You'll see it throughout this. And it also accentuates the drama. So we can move on to the next one, and then the next one, the third one, okay? Now, this is a self-portrait, okay? That was painted in the early 1630s. Now, take a look at him, take a look at the background, take a look at the attention that he is spending to the light, like that leather strap or whatever he has over his shoulder. Do you see, you know, it's luminous, right? And he's a very, very young man here. Let me just tell you something. Let's see. Well, there's several things I have to talk to you about him, but he was considered to be the golden age of Baroque painting. 1632 to 1675. He only lived for 43 years. Okay, so this painting was pretty much in his, you know, his prime, so to speak. And again, the background is very gently created. You can see his signature down here. And I think it's a very expressive painting. Does anybody have a comment on this? He's very young. Anybody want to say anything?
Oh, that's a,
I'm sorry?
I don't know if that's a metal breastplate that he's wearing.
I don't
I mean,
know. I
it's-
don't know if it's metal. I mean, this strap, usually if you're wearing a breast plate, it usually has two straps, I believe, but I
Yeah,
could
but
be
we-
wrong.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry?
I've got some shadow there, so it's hard to tell exactly what it is.
No, you can see a strap over the two parts on his shoulder.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait,
kind of
why do I
buckle.
only see one? First of all, let me get you all in gallery view. Hold on 1 second, please. Hang on. It'll be easier for me to, what's going on here? I don't know. Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
When did artists start to sign their names and year on paintings?
I can't say for sure, but I know I've been aware of signature from the late 1500s on. And signatures are very important to painters. You will see as we go through lectures and things, they really perfect their signatures in a very special way. Now you can see a signature down here. It's a little hard to see, but you'll see it in further pictures coming along. Now, let's move on to the next one, please. Thank you, Jason. Okay, this is a self-portrait of Vermeer, you know, which is, it's an interesting one. It's so different than his first one. Obviously, he is older, but he really looks like a fancy fop, you know, like with a ruffled collar and just, you know, but what I really love is check out that highlight in his red gold hair, okay? It's quite beautiful. And the lighting on his collar. His face is somewhat diminished, actually. So I find this to be a rather unusual painting done in the Baroque time of Dutch painting. The focus is not on the face, and this is a self-portrait. So the focus is very much, I mean, my eyes go right to the collar and the lighting of his hair, which I think is very, very unusual. Okay, now I'm just going to say something here, which is many of Vermeer's subjects, unlike this particular self-portrait, people are caught, well, this is actually, it's like he is caught in
The
a
face
fleeting
is
moment.
off.
I'm sorry,
Face is turned.
I am not sure if I can hear someone.
I was just saying, the face is always seem to be turned to the side, not straight on.
No, you're right. I mean, it's not like, hang on one second, please. I'm just trying to get you all in the gallery, and I'm not sure what was this for. Hang on. Anyway, he is at a 3/4 angle. He looks pretty happy, but no, they're not, his portraits are not staring at you. They'll watch the next, who knows, I may come upon one, but it's beautifully done. Does anybody have any comments on this?
What's
He
the
doesn't even
time
look like the
span?
same person.
I'm sorry?
He doesn't even look like the same person.
No, no.
I was going to ask you the difference in years from the first portrait to this one, because you're right, he looks so totally different. How many
He
years?
was
in
very
between?
young. He was quite young. And this one was done in 1636, okay?
16.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. He was born in 1632, 1675. Wait, I just got my thing wrong here. This was done here in the, I'm going to blow this up and see if I can see the date. Well, let's just compare the two. He was a young man here, right? He almost
Yes.
looks like a member of some kind of riding army kind of group. And
So that's
if we go back to his next-
1654.
I'm sorry?
The 1654 for this one.
Thank you. And
And
the
then-
next one,
I don't see a date on this one.
no, I don't.
It's when did the Three Musketeers come into play? Because that's what he was.
looks like. He didn't live to be that old.
No, he just
No,
looks
he
like his
didn't.
hair grew out and he became more flamboyant. That's what he looks like.
Exactly.
He
Thank
just
you.
looks quite different.
I mean, he is, I mean, the thing is, when you, even if you only live to be 43 years old, back in those times, you really age fast. You really do, you know? So here he's looking like an older man, perhaps in, 1670 or whatever. I'm sorry, I don't have the date, but people aged much faster then, okay? Lots of things went on. Okay, let's go on to the next one, please. Okay, this one I really love. Done in 1656. It's only 2 feet by 10 inches, and this is called the Maid Asleep. And again, take a look. How beautiful is that? Okay, I mean, what are you drawn to first? Are you drawn to her face? Are you drawn to her collar? I myself,
That blanket.
yeah, I go right to the blanket because I think it's so extraordinary. There's obviously some kind of fruit bowl sitting on top of the table. And, it's like she's dozing right in the middle of her chores. And again, she's not aware of the painter at all. Okay. Now, many of the subjects did pose for Vermeer. So there you go. Who knows? Maybe she fell asleep during the sitting and he preferred that. Look at the widow's peak on her. very, very exaggerated. And if you're into interiors, can you check out this chair? It's a leather chair with studs. It's quite beautiful, and wood. Okay, so again, she's looking down, she's unaware. The flesh tones are beautiful. We're not going to compare to Rubens or anything like that, but he keeps up. He really, really does. Does anybody have any comments on this?
I think he really gave her a lot of credit by focusing, having the focal point be the work that she was working on.
It's very beautiful. It's very, very beautiful.
But
Some
would
sort of,
she,
Hmm?
Do you know
she
where
seems to be wearing a velvet outfit. Would the maid have worn a velvet outfit?
Well, here's the thing. She's obviously not a maid, you know, to farmers, because farmers and working people did have maids. She's an upper class servant. Totally. You know, just, you know, she's well kempt. She has a hairstyle. She's got the beautiful clothes, and, you know, she's to the upper class. So that's that. Okay, now I just want to explain something here. This also shows the soft modeling of the subject's face and Vermeer's technical expertise in representing light. Okay, because I think it's very interesting. If you look at her collar, that's actually the bright spot. If you had painted her face that bright, it just wouldn't have worked as well. Do you see how face and fabric kind of relate? Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
So then again, there's that collar. That's probably the brightest part of the painting. So I think it's very, very interesting. He uses light rather than line to create form. And I think that's very, very true. Okay, we can move on to the next one, please. Okay, this is the Lace Maker, which was painted in 1670. So, you know, it's the last half of his life. Again, this sold for $20 million some years
Wow.
ago.
Wow.
So, I mean, people love Vermeer. He's everybody's favorite. I mean, they're charming, charming paintings. They don't upset anybody. They show life being lived back in those times. It's usually quite charming. So let's look here, for example, on the Lace Maker. Okay, you're seeing the cracked background, of course. Again, he's very, very tender with his subjects. Look how beautifully he shows her hand at work. You know, it is very dexterous, and the light is very beautiful. In this case, the light is coming from, oh God, I always get this up. It is, I do believe it's, you know, from what I'm seeing, it's coming from the left, going towards the right. Okay, the woman, the lace maker is working very hard. Again, she seems very unaware. Unlike the maid who fell asleep, she's looking down at her work, and it's very delicate, delicate work. Take a look at the light on the cloth and the strands of fabric that are spilling off on that blue and white striped object. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Take a look at the post on the table and that glow in the post. Can you see what I mean? On the table here, whoops. I don't know if anybody's seeing. Can you see my arrow, anybody? Or you're just seeing Jason's arrow? Jason? Yeah, just moving on up to the post, please. Yes, ta-da, that gleam, okay? All of those are very, very important ways of showing, Vermeer almost showing off, so to speak. Now, what do we think about her face? The light is coming from left to right. It's surprisingly, I find it's very soft lighting compared to her handiwork and her hands. Does anybody have any comments on that?
Well,
He just captures her face so sympathetically.
Yes, very tender, very tender. Now, take a look at her hair, everybody. So it's parted, it's being pulled back, but can you see the little hat that she has on top?
I thought that was a braid.
I
No,
thought it
it's
was,
not a
a-
hat.
It looks like a
The
braid.
hat.
Does look like a braid.
I feel
No,
like
it's
it's
a hat.
interesting.
Yeah.
I assumed it was a hat
It
because
looks like a hat.
It looks like her same hair color though.
it is, but not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of light in that.
No,
And if you look-
I
if
think
you
it's a,
look-
I think it's
I'm
a
sorry?
braid.
I think it's a
And you
braid.
can see through it on the
Mhm.
top.
Mhm.
So it
Well,
can't
what's
be.
also so very interesting though, is she has a huge, like her face is you see her face coming down, you see where her hair parts,
Yeah.
okay? And then the rest of the hair that's being pulled back,
Yeah.
it's quite massive, the distance.
And she has a braid, a cornet braid in the back.
You mean to the side?
No,
No.
on top of her head is
Yeah.
a.
Oh, on
kind
top
of-
of her head.
I
Yes,
don't know if
that's-
that's a hat. Oh, maybe that's a hat.
I
It's
do tend to
definitely a
believe it's a
hat.
hat. Nobody's skull goes that far back. And Vermeer is very, very expert showing people and, you know, their features and stuff like that. I think it's a hat, but nonetheless.
But why would she
Okay.
be wearing a hat in the house? It's
Well,
cold. in that
again,
period.
I don't know if she's a lady of the house. I don't know if she was required to wear something. I mean, many women at that time wore kind of little hats and bonnets and things.
Mm-hmm.
So my thinking is it's some kind of cap, not a hat, a cap.
Lisa, could you comment on the size of this painting? Because I always thought it was a big painting, and then when I saw it, you know, in person,
Yeah,
it was so small.
right. None of his paintings, again, as I said in the beginning, he only did tiny paintings. The average size being maybe 2.5 feet to 3 feet. There's some exceptions, but they were tiny paintings, which is really a big surprise, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It was very
Yeah.
surprising.
To
Yeah.
me, Lisa,
yeah,
Monica, to me, it looks like her face is disproportionately big. The whole circumference of her face is disproportionate to the rest of her head. And her head looks like it ends up in a cone shape back there somewhere. And that piece of hair on her left, our right, I don't know where the heck that comes from.
the
if
corkscrew
hat is
curl,
a-
The back.
that curl.
Yeah, that looks like it's behind the hat. Eh, You
It's
know,
very odd.
odd.
It's very, very odd. And then we're
doesn't-
not even-
obviously he's, this is a man trying to quaff a woman.
yeah. But again, I mean, again, if you look at her face, she is looking down. We're looking down at her head. Okay. It's not like the girl with the pearl earring who's just kind of looking sort of to her side. So what he's trying to do here is show, the crown of her head and the back of her head. It's off, but I'm not going to split hairs over Vermeer. I just said in good conscience, okay? I think it's a beautiful painting. And sure, things might be a little off. I mean, we can look at her hand, like one hand is exquisitely rendered, and the other, if you almost look, it's almost like a whole other hand is being painted. Do you see the difference between the two hands? So, artists do whatever they do, but he was extraordinary. Why don't we move on to the next one, please? Okay, this is a very, very interesting one. This is called Woman in Blue Reading a Letter, painted in 1664. And I'm particularly intrigued by this. I don't know if any of you noticed this in the New York Times, an article, several weeks ago. Notice this kind of canvas piece painted in the background. it turns out, lo and behold, that there was actually a Cupid painted there. And what Vermeer did was he just covered it up. Hence,
Hmm.
it looks like almost like a canvas or something mounted on some kind of, I don't know what, or it almost looks like a map, actually, if I'm looking very closely. Let me just see if it does almost look like a map, doesn't it? Can you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so before the map, there was a Cupid, and that was not unusual for many painters to do. It's still done to this day. Okay, let's talk about the woman reading, okay? Now, her head in profile, it's in proportion. Notice there is something going on in her hair there. Do we think she's pregnant?
Yep. Yes.
And yet there's no mention of her pregnancy, which I think is very, very interesting. So I don't know what to say. I can't claim. I mean, my first thought was, oh, yes, she's pregnant, but she may not be.
I think
Okay.
she's pregnant.
Got a
I'm
big
sorry?
tummy.
Big tummy, which could happen. Maybe she's had 20 million children. I don't know. Again, notice the studded grommets on the chairs, very similar to some of the other things you've seen with the maid, you know, who's fallen asleep. I love the way her hands are clenched. I mean, she's clenching that letter. And I think, I mean, this is what I read into it. Mail wasn't great back then. A letter was no internet, obviously. Deliveries were sparse. Letters meant a lot. Look, I just feel like she's clutching it. You know, so I think that's a very interesting reflection on of the times. Now, again, the light source is coming from your left again. You see her face highlighted, okay? Her blouse is highlighted, her smocking or whatever she's wearing, and her hands are. So anybody have comments about her? Or should we move on to the next one?
Looks like she's an expectant mother and got news from the father who's probably fighting some war somewhere.
That's a good
Okay.
possibility. That's a good possibility. But again, I mean, no mention of pregnancy. So I don't know.
We didn't speak of those things at that time.
That is true. And I wondered about that. But would it not be a woman with child or something like that? I
No,
mean,
no, because that was something usually was hidden. That's why they wore these big garments.
you have a good point. I'm thinking of some of the religious paintings with, you know, the Virgin Mary pregnant or I don't know. It's a good point. Okay. So let's move on. It's just so interesting because he's choosing almost like a 3/4 painting of her. You know, so, all right, let's move on to this one. Okay. This again is a lady writing a letter. Okay. 1662. Sorry, let me just drink something here. Okay. Perfect Vermeer lighting. I'm sorry this JPEG is quite small, but is she not looking at us? One of the first. Okay. And I think she's of a very high class. Look at that I think it's ermine, those fur,
Vermin.
yeah,
Vermin.
cuffs and around her neck at all. You know, she's sitting quite happily ensconced. Look at their hair with the little beads of light or whatever is in the dressing in her hair. She just looks like she was just caught from writing a letter. And Vermeer does have that habit of doing that. You know, it's either somebody unaware or just being like he's saying, look up, please. Okay. Now, some of these paintings, it's a Dutch term for a character of a type of person. And it's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's called a trony. Okay. And that is sort of, you know, it's that mysterious feeling like the subject has been caught either unaware or just looking up for a moment. very fleeting. Okay, so again, it's not, well, here, this particular closing is very, very exact. If you compare it to the other one with the woman who's writing a letter, she is very, very upper class. She's not a Tronny, so to speak. So we can move on to the next one unless somebody has a comment.
You
Okay,
ever do a painting of a man in process of anything?
not, I don't think so. I can't swear to it yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Um,
seemed to
I'm
have
sorry?
like, I noticed that the backgrounds are always fairly plain and they don't really interfere with what's going on in the forefront of of his paintings. You know, all the business seems to be in the forefront, in front of his subject, and the background is fairly plain, and we're very rarely drawn to it.
Well, again, in this situation particularly, she's a servant. Where is she working? Maybe in one of the kitchens or something. I mean, they're not going to be highly decorated by any means, but the food array, the still life of that food is so beautiful. Look at the gleaming, I believe that's a Delft vase over there, the blue and white. Look at the milk being poured. Okay, it's extraordinary. Look at her strong arms. And again, look at the light catching one side of her face.
But the background is lit up.
I'm
This
sorry, the
one.
background is,
Lit up.
there is
Very
lighting
white.
on it.
Mhm.
It falls into shadow as we go closer to the window. Okay, you can
Yeah.
see a few sundry things hanging up. Check out the thing on the floor, the object on the floor.
What is that?
I don't know. I'm going to ask all of you.
I think it's a grinder of some type, doesn't it?
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
It
I
looks
think
like
it's an old school mousetrap.
it looks like there's a little pot in there.
Holly says it grinds coffee beans.
Oh, there you go. There you go. And she's put it down because she's got this whole array of other
doesn't look like
things, of
mouse.
bread and milk and all of that. But excuse me, just the beauty, excuse me, sorry about this cough. The beauty of the still life, even the tin little object hanging up on the wall behind the basket. Let me ask you this. Do you feel that she isn't important in this picture?
Yes.
Yes, from her placement.
I think she's very important. But there's an interesting balancing of the other objects, okay? He has such delicacy, and I think he renders women in particular with such, with such respect. You know, whatever they do, whether they're, writing a letter in ermine or, here she is, she's some kind of servant. They're gentle, they're beautiful. And I think we see why people like this work so much. Okay, as I said, this one was painted in 1662. And I want to talk to you a little about some of the other things going on. Okay, Vermeer's work, as you've seen, was basically centered around the home. Domesticity was the world of women, mainly in the household. Okay, now Vermeer ranks very high among other Dutch artists. He's right up there with Rembrandt. Okay, now think of Rembrandt. He painted these huge scenes in merchant guilds and many, many, many people with the light focusing down on masses of men. Okay, this is quite different. Okay, now his work was produced for a relatively small number of patrons. And there were a small circle of patrons who lived in Delft, as in Delft, China, as in the blue vase there, DELFT, okay? It was a community, okay? And there were a few other connoisseurs besides Delft in The Hague And there are few individual paintings sold in Antwerp and Amsterdam, but most of his work circulated around that small area of the Netherlands, and again, very domestic subjects, which is very, very interesting. Now, something else I just want to point out, he was not a teacher. He had no pupils. That's recorded history. However, he was a member of the Painters Guild, okay? And he did have communication with other painters in that area, so who were active in that city. And that was an active city. Now, just as a little aside, his father was trained as a weaver of very, very fine materials. Okay, so that's just a little aside. So I'm just going to mention this. Now, his father did these beautiful weavings. His debts, his father's debts, probably explains why Vermeer had to train himself, basically, rather than joining the leagues of some kind of master painter in that area. It was debt that made him produce work. Okay, we can move on to the next one, please. Okay, this one here is a woman holding a balance, painted in 1662 to 1665. Now, do you know what a balance is? It's a little hard to see here, but can you see her hand is suspended, and do you see it's like a balance, like it's a small weight. You see the different directions, 1, 2, 3, and the other going off into the background there. Things were weighed on that, okay? Now, she's of aristocracy. You can see that again, the fur trimmed cuffs. Look at this lighting back here. Be aware that there's curtains coming down, and there's that light peering through, okay? And it's just zooming in on her, which is, I mean, I think he's exaggerating it, but it makes it so tender and so beautiful. Now, look at the painting in the background. I think I'm seeing some kind of family crest back here, or it's a religious painting. I'm not sure. What do you all think?
There are a lot of people at the bottom of it.
There are. That's what tends to make me think it might be a religious scene.
Yeah.
Though he doesn't usually paint religious scenes, or he didn't, but this may just be an aside. Again, the main feature is on the woman, and it's just so delicate and beautiful. And again, in 1653, this is going to change his life. He married the daughter of a wealthy Catholic divorcee, okay? And hence had 11 children.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's just incredible. Now, here's the thing. If we can move on to the next one. Oh, that's a focus just of her hand. And can you see the balance now?
Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
here, the two suspended things.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at the light hitting her fingers. It's beautiful. Notice it's very much a monochromatic tone. You're not seeing bright colors at all. It's, bathed in lights and grays and all of that. And, the white, obviously, but it's pretty monochromatic. You're not seeing bright yellows, blues, or anything. They blend in well. Okay, now I was just going to say this. During his short career, as I said, he died at 43 and he had 11 children. He was able to support his very, very large family. Okay.
Wow.
His paintings commanded high prices even in his lifetime. I'm sorry, was somebody going to say something?
No, this is so monochromatic, and in the painting that preceded it, it's so wildly colorful.
I know.
No, I mean, it's just interesting. I was even going to ask about that kind of cobalt blue paint that he used. Just interesting.
Oh, you mean with the woman with the water jug?
Yeah, and her cobalt blue skirt. Yeah,
Well, notice here, thank you, Jason. You see the light coming in? That's a big window, access to a lot of light. If we move on to the woman with the balance, the
Hmm.
curtains are closed, there's not much light, everything is subdued. It's brilliant.
Also,
his-
at the window, the curtain has got the sort of the white and the gold, or the pearl and the gold. And then when you go to her, you see the same thing, them reflected, no?
I'm not
Sorry.
quite sure. Are you talking
Jason?
about the woman with the jug or the woman with the balance?
The woman with the balance.
Okay, if we could go back to that, please.
Yeah, if
sorry.
you look at her outfit, you
Mhm.
have the same play of the white and the gold peeking out from her outfit, just like the curtain is.
Yeah, I don't find it brilliant though, it's still, to me, I find it very subdued. I mean, I'm sorry?
I was gonna say, she also looks expecting to me. The lady with the scale.
She's busy. She's looking down. To me,
Yes.
she almost does have a religious quality to her.
Maybe I didn't use the right term. She looks pregnant to me.
In this one as well?
Yeah. Look how
Okay, let me
big
tell you something a little
Yes,
bit about
she
fashion
looks
of the
pregnant.
time.
Look how big her tummy is.
It
I've
is.
got 3 kids. She looks pregnant.
I had 3 kids, I know. But anyway, let me just tell you something about the fashion of the times. And you might be right about pregnancy. Van Dyck, excuse me, a very famous painter.
Yeah.
And the fashion of the times, women wore their, right under their breasts, their bust there's empire clothing, okay? So it would accentuate a woman's stomach. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Do you follow me? So, I mean, I don't know if she's pregnant. I don't think that was his wife in particular. I don't know, but I do know fashion of the times made women look more pregnant than they might necessarily be.
Huh.
But hers, she looks more extended. I think I agree. She does look pregnant.
Well, and I have worn empire waisted clothing and I'm very slim. I
Mhm.
don't look that round. I'm not trying to dispute what you're saying, but just from my own experience.
Right. But again, remember, women at that time, unless they were poverty stricken, were not slim usually. I mean, the sign of one of the signs of wealth was being full fleshed.
Aha, okay.
So I'm not sure, but it's interesting, isn't it?
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, big women, big men. Yes. Okay, so I have to talk to you about one thing as we move on to our next picture, and that is this. Okay, if I can find my description, because I need an actual kind of, this is fascinating to me. There are people who claimed, oh, there's that same map. Look, that was very much receding, that looked like it was kind of painted by Brown and covered up. Okay, and there's that similar window. There is something where art critics say, and I don't know how I feel about this. There's something called camera obscura. Do any of you know what that means exactly?
Obscura.
Yeah. So Vermeer was one of the artists who made use of it. It's an ancient optical advice, okay? In the most basic form, we can say it's simply like a dark room with a small hole, or a box with a hole in one of its sides, okay? So what happens is, here we go. On the wall opposite the hole, okay, an image is formed back to front, okay? So it means camera obscura actually means it's an ancestor of photography. It means, the Latin name means dark chamber. So it shows light comes through the small little hole, and as a result, you get the image upside down, okay? Does everybody kind of understand it? So some people say, oh, well, these artists didn't paint it. It helped them plot their canvases, and they'll say, oh, you know, it's like it was all projected for them. I still say this is a beautiful painting. Do you understand what I mean about camera obscura?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, they use it as an aid for plotting compositions, okay? Essentially, it consisted of a lens attached to the aperture of a tent or box that was dark, okay? So Vermeer, they say, experimented with it. Anyway, it doesn't bother me whether he, messed around with something that leads to photography or not. It wasn't photography. I'm going to point something else very interesting here, and I don't know. The man sitting with the woman, okay? Does he remind you of that early slide I showed you of Rembrandt with a hat and the red coat and the hair? Not Rembrandt, excuse me.
Rembrandt or
Vermeer.
Vermeer? Yes.
And it doesn't say it. She's laughing. She's the lady with an officer with a laughing girl, painted in 1661. Vermeer wasn't an officer, but it's the same garb. So that's just a little aside. Okay. Now notice, I feel, even though we have this huge officer in the foreground, but he's shadowed, okay? The light is zooming in from that very similar window onto her face. And she's laughing. Though I feel like she looks quite tiny. Quite tiny compared to the officer. Now, again, if we trimmed his hat, you know, even so, it's a very large figure in the foreground. But again, we have that beautiful light. And again, Vermeer painted in his home quite a bit. So you'll see familiar windows and scenes. Okay. Interesting that he did not paint his children in the way, if we remember last week, Rubens had pictures of his children, paintings of his children. So let's move on to the next one, please. Oh, there's that close-up of the map of the southern Netherlands again. Okay, land, I think I mentioned with Rubens as well. It's a crummy little visual I got, but I kind of like it. Its land was really reconfigured at that time. So that's just a very, very alien looking map. Okay, we can move on to the next one. Okay, this one here. Now, I know, are you thinking it's a man because we saw those big brims on the office? No, it's a not a young girl, but it's a girl with a red hat painted. It took two years, 1665 to 1666. And the height of it is 9 inches by 7 inches.
Oh my goodness.
2 feet by almost 2. I mean, wait, it's tiny. Okay. Now let's look at her. We're not seeing a window. We're not seeing a light source. And it's a very interesting and different type of light source. It's coming from below and the opposite side of compared to many of his paintings. Do you see what I mean? So her lips, her nose, her earrings are really accentuated, and that light is shooting up to the top of her hat. I think it's a very, very interesting composition. And of course, we're getting that frilled white collar. And again, what Vermeer never lets us down, that carved post by her hand. Now, my first thought is, and maybe this is terrible to me, I don't know. I do not find her attractive.
No.
She's not.
No. And I don't know if it's, I want to discuss this with you. Is it the lighting that does it? Or is it the figure herself? Notice he has that point of light on her nose. Nobody looks lovely with a point of light on their noses. And I'm not being mean or anything, but you know, if you hold up your thumb and you try to get rid of that light on her nose, it makes a huge difference.
Well, and the right side of her face is very broad, especially as it connects with her ear, which lengthens all that flesh tone.
Well, she is 3/4, you know?
Yes. Yes,
So you will see more of the side of her head,
of course.
but it is broad. It is broad. It's not molded either, you know, as a lot of his faces are. That
Mhm.
particular side of the face, it's just laid out with a color oil, okay?
Mhm.
So it's very hard to tell if she's pretty or not. Not that it matters, okay? Now,
She has no expression. She has no expression. That's the problem.
but I think her mouth is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
her
I-
lips are parted.
I
She's
think
missing
it's her,
eyebrows.
I think it's her eyes that are strange,
They're small.
They're small.
very
Yeah.
small. And
Small.
like somebody just said, no eyebrows, no eyelashes.
Right.
Eyebrows.
Well, here's the thing. It's true. Her eyes are not important. Her lips are. And if you flipped her around, she has girl with a pearl earring.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
They're
Oh, yeah.
lush. It's the same shade. It's very, very interesting. So let me just talk to you about his paint palette for it. He painted with a very limited palette, and he ground his own pigments,
Wow.
which I think is really interesting. Again, he was a very, very intense painter to the point, you know, he had to create his own pigments, okay? And palettes were limited back then, just the same thing with Rubens. I mean, you only had a certain amount of colors to work with, okay? So it was limited. So you're seeing your blues, your reds. I mean, you're not seeing a wide range of color, okay? Now, I mentioned before that he painted with glazes, but I want to also tell you that there was a lot of underpainting involved. And underpainting is this, if you don't know it. You start by painting dark. He only painted in oil. You paint dark, let it dry, and paint light colors on top of that dark color. And it's a clever quality. It creates a real mood, okay? So for example, he may have started with a very dark, dark blue with her robe, okay? And then the white folds could be underpainting on top of that blue robe. So it's a very interesting quality. It's very beautiful. Modern artists, so to speak, artists in this day, to this day, they still use it. It's a marvelous technique. So I'll tell you another thing about him. I think that's very, very interesting. Many artists leave sketches, journals, all that kind of stuff when they die. He did not leave Vermeer. He did not leave one journal of his artwork, and he left not one sketch. Why do you suppose? Any thoughts?
With 11 children, he had no time.
That could be. I also think in a hasty household, things could have been tossed away very quickly. But when you think of these masters, I mean, we look at Leonardo's sketches, we saw Rubens' sketches. I mean, everybody sketched. Surely he had to. But it's sad, there is no record of it. Okay, now let's go on.
As well, Lisa, you say only 34 paintings. So
Yeah.
generally his output, he wasn't prolific.
Not particularly. Short life, not prolific, tiny paintings, but
Is
beautiful.
this only 34 paintings remain, or there were only 34 paintings?
There were 2 others that were unfinished.
Okay.
So it's a very limited amount. when you consider these painters start at a very early age. So let's move on to the next one, please. Oh, I'm sorry, the next one. Okay, I think this is an interesting one. This is called The Art of Painting, painted in 1686. It's one of his larger ones, 41 inches by 39 inches. And I find this very interesting. It's as clear as a bell. And you see the environment as well as two figures, which you don't often see in his paintings. Usually it's like the painter himself is observing the figure. Here we're looking at the painter as well. Okay, his easel, he's right-handed. You know, he's painting that massive blue of her dress. She's obviously a wealthy, I don't know if she's a child or a woman, she's very young. And, you know, it's a commission, okay? And commissions only come from wealthy patrons. So this is a commission of a commission, which I think is very, very clever.
Hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's almost like he painted twice. Look at the lush drapery. It's magnificent. Okay, again, check out the chandelier there. Such delicacy. Look at the light hitting it. And then you see the graphic tiles back, you know, below. So I have to say, actually, that I feel that he had a feeling, aside from painting people, he did have a beautiful feeling for objects and designs, you know, decor, home decor, so to speak. They're beautifully done. And again, like many of his paintings, the light is coming in towards the woman and fading off, okay? Now,
Lisa, you
yes.
never mentioned his treatment of fabrics and things is so beautifully done.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The folds and that hat, the lady with that feathered hat. I mean, you can almost feel the layers of the hat.
True.
It's
the feather,
amazing.
yes, yes. It's interesting. I mean, this one, and again, with the maid who was embroidering or making that tapestry or whatever she was doing. I mean, he was very versatile. And you're right, people don't comment that much on it. I mean, it's always their faces, their glowing eyes, their pearls. But look at this. Look at the shadow in the back of his, the painter's shirt or whatever he's wearing or coat. While it may be striped, he's getting wonderful highlights of light. Okay. And for a self-educated artist, look at the setup of this interior in that corner with the robes coming down and there's a table there with fabric just lying across it. That could be a still life study unto itself. It's just so beautiful. And I feel for the first time, tell me if I'm wrong, do you find the figures as important?
Yes, they're important.
I'm sorry?
Yes. They stand out at you. The figures stand out.
Yeah, yeah. But it's his lighting. I mean, really, because it's his lighting that always does it. What can I say? You know, because they're in a busy room. And yet, well, she in particular, the subject stands out very, very much. Okay.
It's his third map, right? that
I'm
you've done?
sorry?
That's his third map on the wall.
That is a map, yes.
He must be very good at drawing maps.
You know,
Hence-
Lisa?
Lisa, can I
Yeah.
say, you know, it seems to me that this must be his studio. The light comes from the same window
Mhm.
every single time. It seems that he sets up in front of the window and everything, and it's just the setting is always the same. It's just that the subjects are different. So it seems to me that he's in his studio, and that's sort of the stage of his studio, and that's where he sets everything up.
I think
Is
you're
that-
quite right. Hi, Monica. It's good to see you. Sorry, everybody. What I was going to say, I think you have a very good point, and that's probably true. And why am I remembering from the movie Girl with a Pearl Earring that his studio was up steps in a family house?
Well, that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like this is the stage. And
Yes.
that he sets everything up there. The light source is always from the left side.
Mhm.
And it's just that the subject changes because a lot of the furniture is the same. The map is the same. And if
Yes.
it's a wall covering of some sort, and he just might paint something else there.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
Mhm.
And again, it's a very confined, limited thing that he's doing, but it's magnificent.
Well, it works, but it's always the same.
A lot. Yes.
I
Yes.
would say, I think that the girl in the blue outfit here is the same girl was the yellow one sitting at the desk. I think it's the same girl. I don't know. It looks like it to me. Like maybe he used some of the same models too.
Well, it's interesting because in all the readings that I've done, he never used his children. So maybe she was a model, and maybe she's got that high forehead look. So you might be right. You might be very, very right.
Yeah, I just get the feeling.
Is she holding like a music instrument?
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yes.
figure out. It's like a
And
trumpet,
like
right?
music notes or something. She's like,
Okay.
she's poised. And I don't know exactly what it is. It looks like some kind of very delicate horn. Because I don't think women played trumpets back then or anything like that.
It
So-
is, sorry.
I'm sorry?
She has an odd combination of objects, that light
Yes.
horn in her right hand and this heavy book in her left hand.
Yep.
It seems a little bit contrived, actually.
Well, hey, back then,
Yeah.
everything was new.
That book looks very heavy.
That way?
That book looks very heavy.
It is. It's very cumbersome, but I still love it. I love it. Let's move on to the next one, please. Okay, this one. There's that light.
The
This
same
is
floor.
called
It's the same floor
Mhm.
too. It's the same floor.
Yeah,
That's right. It's the same floor. It's the same setting.
you guys
chair.
are good detectives. You're very, very good. Okay, here's the deal with this one. The concert, painted in 1664. Okay, now it was stolen. Are you familiar with the Isabel Gardner Museum
Yeah,
in
I'm sure.
Boston?
Yes.
In 1990, there was a great heist that appeared, and this was stolen from the Gardner Museum.
Ah,
Never to be seen again, isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody probably has it in a private collection somewhere. So it's, look at it while you can, so to speak. So this time there are 3 people in this painting. As you said, very similar, setup, Monica. You see the cloth, falling into the dark. The highlight are on the figures. He's changed. Wait, is that map still the same? I'm not sure, but look at the light on the standing woman. It's beautiful. And he did not paint thickly. It wasn't like he painted with the impasto style, loading up, clumps of paint. His style was very, very smooth. Okay, if you ever get the chance to see his work. Now, here's the thing that's very interesting. He very carefully balanced compositions. His domestic subjects were, specially planned. And, we talk about the camera obscura, which helps you balance and plan compositions. This might be why he used it and why people thought he used it. The composition is beautiful. And they are mostly. Okay, now again, Vermeer was a master of incorporating, and you can see here, shadow and light, okay, to his work. And that style could have been achieved by using camera obscura, okay, because, you know, the light zooms across the opposite wall and it helps you lay out your picture. And you get deep shadows and bright lights. So again, maybe he used it. I have to say, if you look at the yellow of the pianist, you look at the orange of the seat of the man who's sitting there or whatever, bright colors in a fairly monochromatic arrangement. But I am asking you to check out the folds of the pianist's skirt. Look how they tumble down. Are they not so beautiful? So he knows how to pay attention to the main subject. Okay.
Can you explain that painting on the flap of the piano? How can that be there?
Oh, you know, back then in wealthy families, pianos did have painting, the tops of them, under them, I mean, paintings were done. You know, so when you lifted the lid and if somebody performed, not only did you get to see somebody playing, but you also got to look at a pretty picture. Now, I can't really see what it was. From the ones that I've seen, it's usually landscapes though.
This is a
Okay.
landscape.
This is a
Yeah.
landscape.
Yeah. So that's it. Again, it was another kind of decorative thing that's added, you know, in an upper class household, let alone piano. Okay. What were they called? Spinets?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, you have to remember this too. His compositions are mostly invented, okay? And they exhibit really interesting relationships, not only with the figures, but color choice, which you're seeing here. Very, very interesting. You see how the color falls back and gets very muted, except for in 3 areas. The woman playing the piano, her satin, the orange, and then the other woman's face. Very, very thought out, okay? It's not an accident. He loves his lights and darks, okay? Now, I just want to explain something here. He also painted, as you can see from this, he showed 17th century Dutch society ranging from portraits of rich notables, and then, you know, you go to the humble people who worked for them or whatever. Again, let's move on to our next one, please. This is a surprise for many reasons, okay? This is called the Purpurus, all right? Now, why are we surprised? Let's go into it. There's many reasons.
There he is.
Well, he's got his hand over her breast.
Yeah, it's really, you know, everybody's all the other paintings that he's done are very, very proper, so to speak. Look at them. Everybody's having a ball here. And look at that. Could that be Rembrandt in the corner? Look at him. It's almost
Rembrandt.
similar. Why
that's
would
him.
you say
Yes, that's him.
Rembrandt? Vermeer, excuse me.
Rembrandt might be in there too. I don't know.
Maybe. You see that similar collar? Let's move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hat
That's him.
and the curls, right?
That's him.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
That could be Rembrandt in the left corner, which I always love when they add that kind of whimsy.
That
Okay.
doesn't, that looks like the guy in the portrait you showed.
Yeah, it's the first
Yeah.
guy. That's him. Yeah.
That's him.
Second.
That's him.
yes. Can we quit saying Rembrandt, Lisa?
Mhm.
I'm sorry for saying Rembrandt, it's Vermeer. Okay, now Another thing is, look how the color changes in this from all of his other soft and muted paintings we've seen so far, right?
Mhm.
They're so bright. Chances are that tapestry is the same one that the maid was working on, right?
Yeah.
Similar color. I think it's very ingenious. I really do. I think it's beautiful. I find this very amusing. It's such a departure from his other paintings.
Do you think that the guy that with his hand on the woman's breast has a coin in his son that he's giving her?
Mhm. Yes, the coin's
He's got
given
a
her.
coin.
Yes,
in
she's
his-
capturing.
he's
Her
given it.
hand is cupped.
Mhm.
And it almost looks, and it's very hard for me to see here, but Vermeer is obviously holding some kind of box. Excuse me. I don't know if it has to do with it, though. Never mind. I'm not quite sure what's going on.
What's up with the guy in the middle? Is he a priest? What is going on there?
Looks
Oh,
like Napoleon.
I don't know, because he looks kind of leering, don't you think?
Yeah.
That's nightmare fuel. Is what it's called.
That looks, Lisa, that looks like a flask that he's holding. It looks like they're drinking. And
Right,
looks
because
like
she is.
no,
yes,
he like
he
like
is as
he has
well.
a flask.
Yes,
He
you're
has a
right.
Flask.
You're
And
right.
then and the man in the red coat, that's a coin that he has between his fingers, and he's about to drop it into the hand of the whore or whatever it is that she's that they're there. They look like
Well,
they're
we
in a
don't know what he's
brothel.
paying. Let's say we don't know what he's paying for or not, but
It
again,
looks.
I think it's
looks
pretty
like-
obvious, Lisa.
It looks. It looks There's always
This would
that.
be a good video for sexual harassment.
No, for Lisa, there's always that element of doubt, right? That element
of
of
course,
doubt.
why not? But again, it's really beautifully painted, and I think he's having a grand old time here. I want to point out one other composition thing. Notice the red, yellow, and the tapestry all on your left side, very, very bright. Vermeer and whoever that is in the back, okay? They're all dark.
Mhm.
And it's a brilliant balance of color and design.
What's the year it was painted, Lisa, please?
Excuse me?
What's the year it was painted?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was painted in 1656. And
Thanks.
it's just so different. Okay, so he died. When did he die? Let me find my papers. He
70 something,
72, was it? Excuse me, I've just got to,
75.
thank you, yes. So this was done, well into his life.
Can I
It's like
can
he
I see
took
the other guy? Can I go back a couple? I just want to see if it compares to the other guy's hat. Do you
Oh,
remember
sure.
sitting down? The same kind of hat, same red outfit.
And it's an officer.
Is she wearing yellow in this next one? So yellow and white. Yellow and white. It's not
That
the same
yellow
yellow.
is-
It's not the
excuse me?
same, but it's close.
Well, again, remember
That's
how
the
I said
same hat.
he painted with a limited palette?
Sombrero.
I'm sorry?
The other hat looks like a sombrero. This one looks like one of those fluffy hats.
Remember though, as I said in the lecture before, going through, he only used a limited palette. And one of the reasons is because pigments were not available, like a wide variety of pigments. So you are seeing, primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, mixed. I mean, it's not a wide array. He had to grind the siennas. He had to grind his yellow ochres. It's limited when you think of oil painters working today and what they can access. Okay.
I
Which
have
makes
two
us-
observations, if I may.
Sure.
Between Vermeer and the questionable darkly represented gentleman, there is a post and there's a spot of bright yellow light on it. Where
A
is that
post-
coming? Where's that coming from?
This here. Oh, you can't see my arrow. Jason's arrow.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
It almost looks to me, I didn't give it that much attention. It's really cool. It almost looks like the glow of a fire, but I don't know if that's possible.
Hmm.
What are these?
That's just gleam of material.
Are
You
the
see it.
circles? The circle things? What?
Yeah.
Well, there's also a wall right there, and it
Right.
ends halfway up the picture, and that the tapestry is over that because you can't see anyone's legs.
Well, the light source is very interesting here. It's coming from one way, and yet you do have that beam of light, so to speak, on Vermeer's ruffly thing and that little flash of orange yellow.
Yeah.
The walls look similar to his other portraits. The gray wall.
Yes, yes.
So it could be his house. He's having this
Oh, I'm
party.
sure.
11 kids.
Unless he's just playing with light and that light is just there because you know what? Put your finger on the light and look at the painting and see how different it is. Makes a huge difference, don't you think? It's interesting. Okay, shall we move on to the next one?
Yep.
Okay, one of his few religious paintings. This was called Christ in the House with Martha and Mary, painted in 1665, okay? This is the New Testament, and those were his two sisters. So we have a completely different mood going on, yes? What do you all think? Anyone?
Well, he's still accentuating the whites, but it's funny, it's not on the faces.
Right here it is. That's the only spot I see it.
Well, it's on her
Yeah, that's-
hat and her sleeves.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your first part of what you were saying.
No, I was saying he has the whites, like the tablecloth, the
Mhm.
sleeves, but the faces are more or less subdued.
Oh, very much so. I mean, if you look at Christ's face, he's using browns and a little bit of reds. I mean, white too and stuff, but it's much more to the ochre side that he usually paints. You know, it's browns. Okay, she's in deep shadow. You're getting his classic rendering of folds and all of that in the tablecloth as well. Okay, it's very biblical. It's to me, it's very different. You know, I don't know if you agree or not. I mean, well, Christ's hands, even the way he's holding them, it's just it's very religious, and it's also his lighting source is coming from the same as we've seen in many of his paintings, but even that is more subdued. Any other?
If you look,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if you look at his left hand,
Mm-hmm.
the fingers are sort of separated, almost like the way that the priests
Yes,
separate their fingers for
absolutely.
priestly blessing.
Yes, absolutely. I'll show
It's
you
not
something
exact.
else.
It's not exact because it's the wrong fingers, I think, but it reminds you of it.
Also, if
Yes.
you look at the size of his hands and going up the arm slightly, it's the same size on a vertical as his face.
There's something off there, and I'll show you also. Look at the other hand. Okay, two different hands. And again, you know,
Yeah.
that's a very delicate hand. It's rather feminine and elongated. And the hand that's making like the blessing sign is very chunky.
Actually, the blessing sign is the left hand. It's his left hand.
Yes.
You know, the one on the right is pointy.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, but they're very different.
Using the same tapestry in this painting as he did in the others.
Yep. Why not? Why not? Okay, let's move on to the next one, please. Okay, another religious one. This is the Judgment of Paris in 1630. Okay. The model there is his second wife. Okay, not the one who
Oh.
had the 11 children.
When did he get remarried?
Well, one died.
The one with the 11 children?
Yes.
No kidding.
Gee, I wonder. Okay, very similar composition, fabric to the left. There she is posing. It's very biblical. You see the same tiled floors. However, there is a hanging of a crucifixion scene in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got the cross. It's almost like an altar. And 1630. Do we like it?
No.
No.
I don't. I don't particularly care for it. He was much younger though then, also.
What is that animal on the floor?
You know, it's hard for me to decipher. I doubt it. I think it's a rabbit.
It looks like a ram. It's got like horns.
I was hoping it's not a rat, but
It's
I'm
a
not
rat. It's a rat with horns.
well, there you go.
It's a mixture. It's a combination animal.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's too big for a rat. I mean, it's almost, look at the size of it compared to the chair.
Well, he's got a very full body. Again, I want to show you one little thing. You see the little blue right on the chair balanced by the fabric?
Yeah.
If you block that out, again, this is why he's such a master. Block your hand out and get rid of that blue on the chair.
Mm,
It makes such a difference.
yeah, it does.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's incredible what he knew about color and design. Okay, so let's move on to, hang on one second, please. Okay, now we're going to show some of his landscapes because I think they're so incredible. I just have to find my, oh, here we go. Wait. Hang on. Ah. Okay. Okay. This is a view of Delft. Now, you know, I've mentioned that city before. It's where his patrons came from. It's where his Artist Guild was located. Talk about Dutch light. Look at that sky. Look at that pearl gray water. Now, here's an interesting side that we're seeing to him. Look how he can paint architecture and buildings.
Mm,
Very delicate, very beautiful. What's also very interesting, I find, in this painting, look how many bell towers there are. It's obviously, you know, religious. Okay. Now he's very, very clever with his use of colors here. Again, notice how he has that kind of red tile painting on your left of the buildings there. If you were to divide this painting in half, these two sides need each other so well, much color-wise, okay? The blue depends on the red. If you isolate each section, it doesn't work as well.
mm.
Do you see what I mean? Also, look, notice the reflections of the buildings in the water, okay? And the tiny, tiny people on the opposite shore. I think it's so beautiful. I just love it. What do you all think?
It's wonderful to see him, you know, get out of this, you know, his work is beautiful, but I have never seen these. See
Yeah, these
him
are
in a
incredible.
totally different genre.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you almost can't believe it's the same man. So let's move on to the next one, please. Okay, a painting, not a photograph. Okay, this is called, painted in 1658. This is called The Little Street on the Heath, Heath. Isn't that just so charming? Don't you just want to be there? I do. I want to show you something though, design-wise again. Look at the V that he creates with the sky.
Yeah.
It's so smart. Because you're not, well, what do you think about that, V? I'm going to ask you. What do you think?
It counterbalances the arch below it.
Yes.
But it draws the eye down to the people below and the.
Very much so. And even your eye then goes down. Look at the tiny paint marks of the cobblestones. It's extraordinary. Again, if you have it, like one side of a painting, a long painting of the building, and the other half on your left, I believe, with just the little archway. It's two separate paintings, but they move together so beautifully. And that sky makes all the difference. Do you see what I mean?
Mhm.
I just love this one so much. Okay, let's go on to the next one, please. Now, this is so different, okay? This is called On the Heath, painted in 1658. Who knew? Okay, you can see his signature down in the lower corner. Who knew? When did he do these? Why was this a secret love of his? I mean, again, he was a busy man. He had to support a family, even though his wife was his first wife was very, very wealthy. Was this his first love? Even though we all know him for, like, the water pitcher and girl with a pearl earring and stuff. Look how different it is. But note those Dutch skies and the land. Very moody painting.
What is that signature on the bottom?
That's his.
Really?
Stupid, what do you think it is?
Okay, let's go on to another
Because
one.
I can't read. How does he sign? Does he sign with his, because it doesn't look like the name.
I know, but it's him, trust me. With
Okay.
his paintbrush. And also many painters also change their signatures as the years go on. You'll see that with a lot of painters. Like the one I'm thinking of particularly is, for some reason, is Toulouse-Lautrec. But anyway, can we move on to the next, please? I want to show you one other one or two. Okay. This is called I'm sorry, it's a stock photo. It's an extensive dune landscape. And again, it's just, if you notice, if you look, the dunes, the sea, remember in the Netherlands, the land is below sea level. And you can see that here. Okay. Huge skies.
What year was it painted, please, Lisa?
I'm sorry, it was painted in the around 1660, I believe.
Thank you.
It's just amazing to me. And we'll do one more before I continue with some more information. Okay, and this one again is another landscape. It's called Extensive Landscape. And this to me is the epitome of Dutch light. You saw it reflected in people. Now you're seeing it in landscape. And again, if you've been to the Netherlands, he is painting what he sees in terms of light. I remember when we were lucky enough to go there, and when one of my kids, they were pretty young then, but they suddenly realized for the first time that they were below sea level when they were driving, and like they could see the ocean, there were the dikes and then the ocean above them, and it really freaked them out. It's a very disorienting feeling, actually. But anyway, okay. What I want to do, this is our last one. I just want to go back, if we have some time, to go back to the girl in the pearl earring. If we can just go right back, if that's possible. Whoa, sorry, Jason. There she is. So that's what he's known for to most people. Do we think it's his most beautiful?
I do.
I kind of do too.
It looks like the same face of the other girls.
Yes, there is
Yes.
that similarity. I just think it's those eyes. Now, if we got rid of the pearl, that pearl again makes a huge difference. He was a master of lighting.
A quick
Okay?
aside, if I may, I was a sophomore in college when I first saw this portrait in an art history class, and I was brought to tears
Yes.
just because of that earring. I remember it vividly.
Who's speaking? I can't see your face.
Natalie.
Hi. It is, I know. And when you see it in real life, you can't, it's such an icon at this point that when you actually see the real painting, you can't believe it. You just can't believe it. And to this day, I mean, she is an icon. People joke with her all the time. You know, they change her earrings, they put a mustache on her, they change her clothes. I mean, I've seen so many, you know, it's like Whistler's mother, same kind of thing. They're icons. So anyway, before we wrap up, does anybody have any comments or want to, let me get everybody on gallery view. Hi, everybody. Okay, let's find out, let's have a summary. Does anybody want to about this fantastic man? Or shall I?
I think he would have done more artwork if he would not have had as many kids.
I think you're right.
I hope so.
I also think because he was so meticulous, and from the very art of, you know, grinding pigments, that takes a long time. That's no joke. Right to, you know, he painted such with smooth strokes and all. He was, you know, he didn't dash them out. So there's some 11 children and meticulousness sums it up, I'd say, besides extraordinary talent in capturing light. Okay.
Also, the flamboyance that comes out in his second self-portrait is obvious in all of the color that he uses. And I know he was limited in terms of what pigments he had, but man, can he use color?
You're talking about which, I'm sorry, which self-portrait, please?
His second one. The one with
The Three Musketeer one,
yes.
the Musketeer one, like Lisa.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you could say the same thing about, you know, the prostitute with the gold coin. That,
yes,
a lot of color. So, you know, again, I think maybe he deliberately, I mean, there's that muted pearl kind of quality to most of his paintings, but again, Dutch light, but an artist often has to stray also for those two maybe, and just play around with color. That could very much be so. So does anybody else have comments on this wonderful man? You're all good?
Yes,
Then I
thank you.
guess we will wrap it up. Quick question, who do you favor, Rubens? I don't even know how I can ask this. Rubens or Vermeer? Anybody have any choice?
Oh, that's not,
Vermeer.
that's not fair.
It is unfair. So, all right, I'm being cruel.
So real quick, next semester, do you want suggestions? I mean, if y'all can send us suggestions that Lisa could cover someone new for a presentation.
Do you like the classical master artists more than people like in the Impressionist time, or do you like modern art, so to speak, contemporary work? Anybody have any suggestions?
I like a mix, a surprise.
A surprise?
Yeah.
I like the classicals. I like
I'm
the
sorry?
classicals. I like the classicals.
I didn't hear you.
I like
the classicals.
Oh, the classical painters.
classical and impressionists.
What if I treat you with, it's always 2 lectures a semester. I have to research my artists and stuff like that too. What if I do a master and 1 impressionist artist?
Sounds good.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
because you're going to get really, I know who I'm thinking of. I just want to research it a little more first. So I'm not going to say anything yet. I'll surprise you. Okay. So I
Yep.
want to thank you all. And I hope you enjoyed it, these two lectures together.